Power tools use many ball bearings to allow various components to rotate. Over time, a ball bearing will wear and begin to fail. A bearing that is failing will usually give warning, often with a squeaking or a squealing sound. I'll begin by removing the motor brushes from the tool. Next, I'll separate the gearbox from the motor housing. And pull the armature away from the housing. Now I can begin removing the bearing. There's a retaining ring installed above the bearing. I'll remove it first. The next step is to pull the bearing off of the shaft. This is difficult with this design because there's virtually no clearance between the bearing and the plate. I can't get any kind of a puller on the bearing to pull it. So what I'm going to do is break the outer race, remove the ball bearings, and that will leave the inner race, which has a lip that I can install a puller on. To break the outer race, I'll clamp it in my vise jaws. When it breaks, the race and the bearings may fly away from the vise. So I'll place a rag over the top of it and wear safety glasses. I'll use a screwdriver to remove the bearings. And now I can use a puller to remove the inner race. I'll install my bearing separator onto the inner race. Tighten it into place. And I'll place the separator over the jaws on my vise. I'll use a rubber mallet to tap the armature away from the inner race. Now I can install the new bearing. Be sure to place the bearing plate onto the armature before installing the bearing. The bearing has a metal shield and a plastic shield. In this application, the metal shield is installed down or towards the armature. I'll place the bearing onto the armature shaft and use a socket to tap it into place. This socket has a diameter that's about the same as the inner race on the bearing. I just want to make sure I'm tapping on the race and not on the shield and bearings. And now I can reinstall the retaining ring. Next, I'll reinstall the armature. I'll insert the armature into the housing, aligning the bearing with the opposite end. On the fan end, I'll align the bearing plate with the plastic pins on the housing. Then I'll make sure the armature is pressed firmly into the housing. And now I can reinstall the gearbox. And I'll secure it with the screws. I'll finish up by reinstalling the brushes. And that's how you can replace the ball bearing in your polisher.